Vayichan Shem Yisrael neged ha'or kulanu ke'echad.
We are now approaching the momentous Chag HaShavuos, the giving of the Torah, probably the single most important incident in all of Jewish history, and of which it is said a great miracle happened. Vayichan Shem Yisrael neged ha'or. The entire congregation of Israel was united as if one person. Some Sfarim draw a parallel between Pesach, the first day of Pesach, Chol HaMoed, Achron Shel Pesach, and Pesach, Sfiras HaOmer, and Shavuos. The fact is that the whole purpose of Yetzias Mitzrayim was to lead up to Shavuos, when Hashem appeared to Moshe Rabbeinu in the thorn bush of the sneh, and Moshe had questions as to whether the Israelis were deserving of being delivered. Hashem said, "B'hoitziacho memitzrayim tamdu ne'eselakim alahazeh." When you deliver the Israelites from Egypt, you will worship Hashem on this mountain. So the purpose of Yetzias Mitzrayim was to lead to Kabbalah's HaTorah. I used to wonder why the Torah is so intent on impressing us with Yetzias Mitzrayim. Yes, it was a crucial event in our history. But we are told, L'man tizkor Hashem tzetzcha Mitzrayim, kol yemei chayecha, to remember Yetzias Mitzrayim all of your life. And in practice, the Torah gave us many mitzvahs that are related to Yetzias Mitzrayim. So in addition to Pesach, we say every Friday night at Kiddush, Zecher Yetzias Mitzrayim. When we put on film, we say that the film now is Zecher Yetzias Mitzrayim. And the tzitzis are Zecher Yetzias Mitzrayim. And almost every mitzvah is somehow related to Yetzias Mitzrayim. What is the overwhelming importance of Yetzias Mitzrayim? The answer came to me from an unexpected place, but I must give you a little bit of a background for this. I had a young man in my rehabilitation center in Pittsburgh who was recovering from many years of heavy drug addiction. After he finished his withdrawal and his initial rehabilitation, I knew that if he goes back to his home in New York, it's only a matter of time before he hooks up with his cronies and relapses into drug use. So I kept him in Pittsburgh for a number of months. As Pesach approached, he tells me that I really would like to be permitted to be at my father's Seder Pesach. And I allowed him to go. After Pesach, he came back and he told me that when his father started reciting the Haggadah, Avadim hayinu Paro b'Mitzrayim, we were slaves to Paro in Egypt. My patient interrupted his father, and he said, Abba, can you truthfully say about yourself that you were ever a slave? You refer to our ancestors who were enslaved by power, but you don't know what it means to be a slave. I can tell you what it means to be a slave, because all of those years that I was addicted to drugs, I was a slave to drugs. I had no free choice. I did things for drugs that I never thought I was capable of doing, but I had no option. Drugs were my taskmaster. When he told this to me, I realized another aspect of Yetzias Mitzrayim. It is not only being freed from the brutal enslavement of power, but what it is talking about is the enormous importance of B'nai Chorin, of free people. And you're not a free person if you're bound by a taskmaster, whether it be power, or heroin, or cocaine, or alcohol, or any of the addictions that take away a person's freedom of choice. I then began looking at Yetzias Mitzrayim as more than an Independence Day, more than a historical event, but as a teaching that we must never jeopardize our freedom, never jeopardize our B'nai Chorin. And there's so many things in life that threaten to take it away from us. Drugs and alcohol are just only one. But there are many habits to which we can become addicted. Addicted gamblers are as much a slave as a slave of power. People who have no control at all of spending money and going deeply into debt are addicted to that. People who cannot control their sex life are addicted to that. There are people who are addicted to hoarding things. One man told me, I am a prisoner in my own home. My wife has never thrown out anything. I have to circulate in the house between piles of magazines and newspapers and empty bottles. And there's no room for the house for extra any living, because she is addicted to hoarding. And yes, that is an addiction, just as alcohol and drugs. There are people who are enslaved by food. A very difficult addiction. They may overeat to the point where it's dangerous to their lives. They may become anorexic, which is a threat to their life. And they have no control over resisting food. So there are so many aspects of human life that even though there is no one standing above us with a gun or a whip, we are nevertheless slaves unto ourselves. Now it's very interesting that when Hashem gave the Luchot to Moshe Rabbeinu, the Torah says that the Aseret Dibrot, the Ten Commandments, were Chorut ala Luchos, inscribed into the tablets. Now in the Torah there are no vowel markings, and words can be read in more ways than one. And the Talmud says Al Tika Charut, the word does not have to be read only as Charut, but Cherut, which is freedom. And the Torah is telling us that the Ten Commandments and the Torah was Cherut al Aruchos, freedom from enslavement. And I think of this very often when I see people who can't control their temper, who can't control being abusive, who harm themselves and others as well. And they may tell you, I'm sorry, I can't help it. That's the way I am. That's not true. That's the way they have agreed to be. And there are ways to get out of it. So, the relevance of Shavuos to Pesach is that Pesach was liberation from Paro, a despot, a cruel taskmaster. But unless we absorb the teachings of Torah and practice them, we are actually physical animals and are subject to all the drives that animals are subject to. And without Torah, we are Homo sapiens, intellectual monkeys. But what Torah gives us is Cholos al Aluchos, freedom of choice. And so during Davening we say that Pesach is a Zeman Chelusenu. It is not an Independence Day. It's not the Yom Ha'atzmaut. No one makes a Yom Ha'atzmaut for 7 days. And no one sterilizes the kitchen and goes on a strict Pesach diet as a Yom Ha'atzmaut. Now, Yom Ha'atzmaut is a political thing. Zeman Chelusenu is a spiritual thing. It takes us out of being animals subject to our body, and subject to our bodily desires that are tyrannical, every bit as tyrannical as a taskmaster with a whip or gun, and gives us an option to be free people. And as such, we have pride in achieving this freedom. And how foolish of us to allow ourselves to give up this wonderful spiritual status to the addiction force of alcohol or drugs or gambling or any of the other compulsive behaviors. So I think we have to rethink the full impact of what Mountain Torah represents. There are many mitzvahs, 248 positive mitzvahs, 365 restrictions. But these were given to us as mentioned. Animals do not get these mitzvahs. And unless we develop the kind of character that our great tzaddikim have shown us in their lives with their devotion to Hashem, their willingness to sacrifice everything that there is in their lives in order to fulfill the will of Hashem. And if we emulate the behavior of these great tzaddikim, we too can be spiritual people. You see, keeping Shabbos is important. Putting on film is important. Eating kosher is important. They're all important. But we must see them as the will of Hashem that makes us proud human beings. And that is what Shavuos is all about. It is the culmination of Yetzias Mitzrayim, which could have been seen as a political event, a revolution against the despot. But it's more than that. It's giving us our status as truly B'nai Chayrin. And I now can understand why the Torah wants us to think about Yetzias Mitzrayim every day. Because every day we are confronted by our drives that threaten to take our liberty away. I've seen people kill themselves with greed, kill themselves with the desire for fame, and do kinds of things that are destructive, and say that they have no option. We all have options. The Torah gave us the option. And so Zaman Cheroseinu and Zaman Matan Toraseinu are essentially one and the same. Leaving the land of Mitzrayim with its cruelty and inhuman slavery, we are not yet at the goal. It is only when we stand at the foot of Sinai and are b'lev echad k'ish echad, united all in one in dedication to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It's only Matan Torah that gives us the unique distinction of being spiritual creatures. And this is something that we ought to think about very often. Whether it's during davening in the morning, whether it's during giving tzedakah at any time during the day. Right? That we are doing these things out of devotion to Hashem, who has given us our enormous gift of freedom. Chos ala luchos. Cheros ala luchos. Freedom in Torah. And so with that, I'd like you to rethink the davening of Shavuos. Shavuos is indeed a very delightful yontif. And the milchike delicacies are great. But certainly that's not what it's all about. Being up all night and learning Shavuos is wonderful. But that's not enough. We have to implement all of Torah. We have to implement all of Torah every day in our life, morning, afternoon, and evening. And in that way, Zaman Matan Toraseinu becomes a true Zaman L'Cheroseinu. I wish you a wonderful Chag HaShavuos, a wonderful Zaman L'Cheroseinu, and take these teachings to heart. Because after all, that is what makes us unique. And we'll never surrender the pride of our uniqueness as being the children of Hashem.
כאיש אחד, אוי אוי בלב אחד, Vayichan Sham Yisrael neged ha